Broken heart, the sound echoed in the room like thunder. My son's hand struck my face hard in front of everyone. My cheek burned, my ears rang, and my heart felt like it had been torn out of my chest. Gasps filled the dining room. Forks and knives froze midair. My relatives stared in shock, some covering their mouths, some looking away as if pretending not to see. But I saw it. I felt it. The sting of his palm against my skin wasn't just on my face. It sank into my soul. My son, my only child, the boy I raised with sleepless nights and endless prayers, had just slapped me on Thanksgiving Day, in front of my entire family. The turkey sat untouched on the table. The golden skin glistened under the warm lights, but no one reached for it anymore. No one said a word. The silence was heavier than the air itself. I touched my cheek, my wrinkled hand trembling. My son Michael stood there glaring at me like I was his enemy, not his mother. I whispered, my voice breaking, "Michael, why?" He didn't answer. He just looked away, jaw tight, eyes filled with a rage I could not understand. And right there, in that painful silence, I realized this was not just about the slap. This was years of something building up. Something that I never saw coming. But let me take you back. Because this story didn't start at the Thanksgiving table. It started long before, with sacrifices, with love, with choices I made as a mother. And it led all the way here to this one unforgettable moment. But before I tell you everything, let me introduce myself. My name is Margaret. I am 68 years old, and I am speaking to you from Georgia, USA. I know many of you are watching me now, and before I go any further, I want you to take a second, subscribe, like this video, and click the notification button so you don't miss what is coming next. Trust me, you won't want to miss the rest of this story. And please tell me in the comments below, where are you watching this from? Which part of the country? I'd love to know. Now let's go back to where it all began. It was a bright, crisp November morning. The air was sharp, carrying the smell of pine trees and chimney smoke. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday, not because of the food, but because it was the one time of year that brought the family together. This year, I had been looking forward to it more than ever. I had spent 3 whole days preparing. My hands, though old and stiff, chopped vegetables, kneaded dough, and basted the turkey with the same love I always did. I wanted everything to be perfect. You see, ever since Michael married his wife, Sarah, things hadn't been the same. There was distance between us. She never seemed to like me much, though I tried. I told myself it was just adjustment, that with time, she'd accept me. But the distance grew little by little, and my son, my sweet boy, seemed to be drifting further from me with each passing year. Still I held on. Still I hoped. And so, this Thanksgiving I thought maybe things would be different. Maybe this would be the day we laughed together again like old times. I wore my best dress that morning. A simple blue one with white lace at the collar. My late husband, God rest his soul, always loved it when I wore that dress. "You look like springtime," he used to say. I smiled at the memory as I set the table. The silverware gleamed, the plates were perfectly arranged, and the turkey came out golden brown. The house smelled like heaven itself. By noon, relatives started to arrive. My brother James came with his wife, cheerful as ever. My nieces ran through the house, giggling. For a moment my heart felt light again. Then Michael and Sarah walked in. The air shifted. Sarah's heels clicked sharply against the wooden floor. Her perfume strong and overwhelming. She greeted a few people with a polite smile, then looked around the table with narrowed eyes. Michael trailed behind her, silent, almost nervous. I hurried over, wrapping my arms around him. "My boy," I whispered, holding him tight. For just a second I felt him hug me back. But then he pulled away quickly like he didn't want anyone to see. Dinner began. Plates were passed around, glasses clinked, laughter filled the room. I carved the turkey with pride, serving everyone generously. For a while it almost felt normal. Almost. Until Sarah made a comment. "This turkey's a bit dry," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went quiet. I forced a smile, my hands trembling as I set down the knife.
"I'm sorry, dear."
I did my best. Michael cut me off. "Mom, why do you always have to explain yourself?" His tone was sharp, cold. I blinked, taken aback. I wasn't. "You always do this," he snapped. "Always trying to make excuses." My heart sank. My own son's words cut deeper than any knife. I wanted to say something to defend myself, but my voice refused to come out. I looked around the table. My relatives shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between me and Michael. No one spoke. No one helped me. And then it happened. I reached out to place my hand gently on his arm, to calm him down, to remind him I was still his mother. But instead his hand flew up fast hard, and struck my face. The sound cracked through the room. My body froze. My heart stopped. My world collapsed in that single moment. My son slapped me. In front of everyone. And as my cheeks stung and my tears threatened to fall, I knew this was only the beginning of something far worse. Because the look in his eyes told me there was more to come. For a few seconds after the slap, no one breathed. The room was silent, frozen in time, as if the walls themselves were too shocked to echo sound. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, watching, judging, pitying. My cheek throbbed, but the pain inside me hurt far worse. It was Sarah who broke the silence. "Well," she said flatly, lifting her glass of wine to her lips, "maybe now she'll learn to stay in her lane." Her words cut deeper than the slap itself. Gasps spread around the table. My brother James slammed his fist on the wood. "That's enough," he barked. His voice trembled with anger. Michael's face twisted with shame. Or was it anger? He looked at Sarah, then at me. For a moment, I thought he would apologize. For a moment, I saw the little boy I raised, the boy who used to run to me with scraped knees, crying "Mama," and letting me hold him until he felt safe. But that boy was gone. "Don't you dare talk to my wife that way," Michael snapped at James. "This is my house, my family, and my mother should have known better." My knees weakened. My house. My family. The words stabbed me. This wasn't even his house, it was mine. I had bought it with my late husband, and every inch of it carried the memories of a life I built. But he said it as if I no longer belonged. James rose from his chair, fists clenched. "Michael, you've lost your mind. That's your mother you just hit. Have you no shame?" Michael's jaw tightened. His voice was like steel. "Stay out of it, Uncle James. You don't know the half of it." And that's when I realized there was something buried in him. Something boiling for years. I tried to speak, but my lips only trembled. I wanted to ask him why. I wanted to know what I had done to deserve such hatred. But the words stuck in my throat. Sarah smirked, sipping her wine as if she was enjoying the spectacle. Her eyes met mine, cold and sharp, and in that look, I saw the truth. This wasn't just Michael's anger. She had fueled it. The room erupted in whispers. My nieces cried softly. My sister-in-law reached over to hold my hand under the table. But Michael's glare silenced everyone again. "Let her speak," James demanded, pointing at me. "Go on, Margaret. Tell him what he's become. Tell him the truth." My lips trembled. My heart raced. Should I? Should I tell the truth? Because the truth was, Michael didn't always hate me. In fact, there was a time he adored me more than anyone else in the world. He was my miracle child, born after years of praying and tears. After my husband died, it was just him and me against the world. I worked 2 jobs, slept 3 hours a night, just to make sure he never lacked anything. I sacrificed my youth, my health, my dreams for him. And for years he knew it. He loved me for it. He used to tell me, "Mama, when I grow up, I'll buy you the biggest house in Georgia. You'll never have to work again." But somewhere along the way, something changed. And tonight, it had reached its breaking point. "Michael," I whispered finally, my voice cracking. "I don't know what I've done to deserve this. But please tell me why. Tell me what I did to my own son." The room fell silent again. Everyone leaned in, waiting. Michael's fists clenched. His chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes, red with unshed tears, locked onto mine. For the first time that night, he looked less like an enemy and more like a broken man carrying a storm inside. "You really don't know, do you?" he said, his voice trembling. I shook my head slowly, tears streaming down my face. His lips curled into a bitter smile. "All these years you played the saint. But you don't fool me, Mom. You think you sacrificed everything for me? No. You ruined everything for me. And tonight, everyone here is going to hear exactly how." The entire table gasped. My breath caught in my throat. My heart pounded against my chest. What are you talking about? I whispered. Michael slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. You know exactly what I'm talking about. His voice roared through the room. Don't pretend like you don't. Tears blurred my vision. My brother James stood shouting, That's enough, Michael. You're out of line. But Michael ignored him. His eyes were locked on me, blazing with years of anger I could not yet understand. And then he said the words that made the entire room freeze. Mom, tell them the truth about what you did. Or I'll tell them myself. My stomach dropped. My blood ran cold. The relatives stared at me, their faces filled with confusion and suspicion. Sarah leaned back in her chair with a smug smile, as if she had been waiting for this moment all along. And me? I sat there trembling with everyone waiting for my answer. Because whatever Michael was about to reveal, it was something I had buried deep in my past, something I prayed he would never speak of again. But now, the truth was about to come out. The room felt like it was shrinking. The walls seemed to press in, the air thick enough to choke me. Every eye in that dining room was fixed on me, waiting, demanding, expecting me to answer my son's threat. Michael. My voice broke, weak and trembling. Please, not here. Not tonight. His face hardened. Exactly here. Exactly tonight. You've hidden behind your soft voice and kind face for too long, Mom. It's time they all knew who you really are. Gasps rippled across the table. My nieces clutched their mother's arms. My brother James shook his head in disbelief. Michael, what are you saying? Your mother has done nothing but love you. Don't do this. But Michael ignored him, his eyes burning into me like fire. Love me. His voice rose, laced with bitterness. You call that love? You call years of lies and control love? I felt my chest tighten. Lies. Control? The words rang in my ears like church bells on a funeral morning. What lies? James asked, his voice protective but curious. Michael stood now, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He pointed at me with a trembling hand. Tell them, Mom. Tell them what you did when Dad died. Tell them how you destroyed my life before it even started. The room went deadly silent. My spoon clattered against the plate as my hand shook uncontrollably. Memories I had buried deep began to stir, clawing their way back into my mind. Michael, please, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Don't make me. He cut me off, his voice a thunderclap. You never told them, did you? You never told them the truth about Dad. The words hung heavy in the air. Sarah smirked, sipping her wine slowly, enjoying every moment of my humiliation. The others looked around, confused, whispers starting to buzz at the edges of the room. James stood, his fists balled. Michael, your father's death was an accident. We all know that. Stop this nonsense. Michael's laugh was cold and hollow. An accident? Is that what you believe, Uncle James? Is that what she told you too? The blood drained from my face. My whole body froze. He knew. Somehow my son knew. My mind spun back in time. It was 27 years ago. The night my husband, Richard, died. A rainy night, the road slick with water, the air heavy with thunder. I had always carried the weight of that night inside me. Every detail carved into my soul. Everyone believed it was a car accident. Everyone believed Richard lost control. But the truth was far darker. I blinked hard, trying to stay present, but the memory pushed itself forward like a wave crashing against the shore. Richard shouting. My tears. The sound of glass breaking. The fight that should never have happened. And then the screech of tires. The silence that followed. I had kept that truth buried, hidden from everyone, including Michael. But somehow he knew. Michael slammed his hands on the table, his voice trembling with rage. Tell them, Mom. Tell them how Dad died because of you. The room erupted in gasps and cries. My relatives looked at me in horror, their eyes wide with disbelief. My nieces clung tighter to their mother, as though the walls of the house itself had become unsafe. James shouted, Michael, stop it. You're making wild accusations. Margaret loved Richard with all her heart. But Michael's roar drowned him out. Loved him. She killed him. The words exploded like a grenade in the room. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. My body went cold. My breath stuck in my throat. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to silence the accusation. But the memory of that night wouldn't let me. The relatives stared at me, some in disbelief, some in horror, some waiting for me to speak. Sarah leaned forward, her voice dripping with venom. Go on, Margaret. Tell them the truth. Or should I? Tears blurred my vision. My lips trembled. The walls of the house seemed to sway around me. Michael's voice came again, sharp and unforgiving. Say it, Mom. Tell them what you did, or I swear I will never call you my mother again. And there I was, trembling, broken, and trapped. Because the truth he was demanding wasn't just painful. It was dangerous. And if I spoke it aloud, nothing in our lives would ever be the same again. I could barely breathe. The room felt like it was closing in on me. All those faces staring, waiting for me to answer my son's thunderous accusation. My hands trembled so badly, I had to grip the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. Michael's voice sliced through the silence. Say it, Mom. Tell them how Dad died because of you. Gasps lingered in the air. My nieces hid behind their mother's shoulder. James looked at me with wide eyes, his face pale with disbelief. I opened my mouth but no words came out. My throat burned, my chest felt heavy, and tears blurred my vision. I had carried the weight of that night for 27 years, and now it had crashed down in front of everyone I loved. My voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to happen. The room exploded with murmurs. Some gasped louder. Others shook their heads. James shouted, Margaret, what are you saying? Don't let him twist this. But Michael leaned in closer, his face twisted with rage. Don't you dare play the victim now. Tell them what you did. Tell them how you drove Dad to his death. The words stabbed through me. My heart broke all over again as the memories clawed their way back into my mind. I closed my eyes and suddenly I wasn't in the dining room anymore. I was back in that stormy night 27 years ago. Rain pounded against the windows. Lightning split the sky. Richard had come home late again, reeking of whiskey. His steps were uneven, his voice slurred. Where have you been? I demanded, my hands shaking as I held little Michael, only 10 years old at the time, hiding behind me. Out! Richard shouted, slamming the door. His eyes burned with drunken rage. Out with real people, not trapped in this house with you nagging me all the time. I felt my blood boil. I had been holding everything together for months, working double shifts, paying bills, making sure Michael was fed and safe, while Richard drank away what little we had left. Don't you dare talk to me like that in front of our son, I screamed. Richard staggered forward, his face red. I'll talk however I want. You don't own me. The fight escalated. Words flew like knives. Michael cried in the corner, his small body shaking. I tried to shield him, but Richard's anger grew hotter with every second. Finally I snapped. If you walk out that door tonight, Richard, don't you dare come back. I shouted. His eyes narrowed. He grabbed his car keys from the table, stumbling toward the door. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll finally get the freedom I should have had years ago. I rushed forward, grabbing his arm. You're drunk. You can't drive. He shoved me hard. I hit the wall, my body aching. Michael screamed. Daddy, stop. But Richard didn't listen. He stormed out into the pouring rain, his footsteps pounding against the porch. I stumbled after him, crying, begging him to stop. Richard, please. I yelled, my voice drowned by the storm. But he climbed into the car, slammed the door, and sped off into the night. Tires screeched against the wet pavement. Headlights cut through the rain. And then the sound I will never forget, the sickening crash somewhere down the road. The night went silent after that. Too silent. My legs gave out, and I collapsed into the mud, screaming his name. Back at the Thanksgiving table, I opened my eyes, shaking, the memory still burning fresh in my mind. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I begged him not to go, I whispered. My voice trembled. I begged him to stay. But he pushed me away. He drove drunk into that storm. And he never came back. The room was silent again. Everyone stared at me, their faces pale, shocked, unsure what to believe. James finally spoke. His voice was softer now. Margaret, that wasn't your fault. He chose to drink. He chose to drive. But Michael laughed bitterly, a hollow sound that pierced me. Of course you defend her. That's what everyone does. But I know the truth. I looked at him through blurry tears. Michael, please. I never wanted this. I loved your father. I loved him with all my heart. But he made his choices. No. Michael shouted, his voice shaking. His fist slammed the table so hard the plates rattled. You don't get to twist it like that. You pushed him. You told him not to come back. You as good as killed him. The room erupted in chaos. My relatives shouted over one another. Some defended me. Some looked at me with suspicion, their faith in me shaken. And then through the noise, Sarah's cold voice cut through like a knife. She hasn't told you everything. The room went quiet again. All eyes turned to Sarah, who sat calmly sipping her wine, her smirk growing wider. Michael looked at her and nodded, his face pale but determined. Go on, Sarah, he said. Tell them what we found. Tell them what Mom really did that night. My blood froze. My breath caught in my throat. What they found. What could she possibly know? Sarah placed her glass down, leaned forward, and said in a low, sharp voice that made my skin crawl. She wasn't just arguing with Richard that night. She had a secret. One that would change how all of you see her forever. The room gasped again. My heart dropped into my stomach. My body shook as fear consumed me. Because if Sarah knew what I thought she knew, then everything I had fought to protect all these years was about to come crashing down. Sarah's voice hung in the air like a blade ready to strike. She wasn't just arguing with Richard that night, she repeated, her lips curling into a cruel smile. She had a secret. One that proved she wasn't the saint everyone here thinks she is. The room erupted with whispers. My brother James slammed his hand on the table. Enough with your poison, Sarah. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about, Sarah said smoothly, her eyes fixed on me like a predator watching its prey. She pulled something out of her handbag. A folded paper yellowed with age, the edges frayed. My blood ran cold. I knew that paper. I hadn't seen it in decades, but I recognized it instantly. Michael took it from her and held it up. We found this in Mom's old chest when she asked us to clear out her attic last summer. She thought we wouldn't look inside, but we did. Gasps spread around the table. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. The paper unfolded slowly in Michael's trembling hands. This, he said, his voice shaking with fury, is a letter. A letter my father wrote on the very night he died. The room went still. My breath caught. Tears welled in my eyes. Michael's voice broke as he began to read. Margaret, if anything happens to me tonight, know that it's because I couldn't take it anymore. The fighting, the secrets, the lies. You've betrayed me in the worst way. And I'd rather die than live another day with this truth hanging over me. The words sliced through the room like a knife. A chorus of gasps followed. My body shook violently. My hands clutched at my chest as if I could keep my heart from splitting in two. James leapt to his feet. That doesn't prove anything. Richard was drunk that night, confused, angry. He didn't mean what he wrote. But Michael ignored him, his eyes locked on me. What truth was he talking about, Mom? What lies? What betrayal? I couldn't breathe. My lips moved but no sound came. Everyone's eyes drilled into me, demanding, waiting, judging. Sarah leaned back, smug. Go on, Margaret. Tell them. Or shall I? I shook my head violently. You don't understand. It wasn't like that. Michael roared, slamming the letter on the table. Then explain it. Because all I see is proof that you drove Dad to his grave. That his last words were filled with anger at you. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But the truth was clawing its way up my throat. The betrayal Richard had written about wasn't just about the fight. It wasn't just about the drinking. It was about something deeper. Something I had buried for 27 years. My secret. The one thing I prayed Michael would never, ever find out. Michael, I whispered, my voice trembling. There are things about your father you don't know. Things I kept from you to protect you. His eyes narrowed. Protect me? Or protect yourself? The relatives whispered louder now, their face. The clinking of the shattered glass echoed in my ears, but it was nothing compared to the sound of Michael's voice demanding answers. Did you betray Dad? His face was pale, his fists clenched tight against the table. His whole body shook, a storm of rage and grief boiling inside him. Everyone's eyes pierced into me like knives. The weight of their stares pressed against my chest until I felt I could no longer breathe. I closed my eyes, drew a shaky breath, and whispered, "Yes." The room erupted. Gasps, cries, whispers all at once. My nieces covered their ears and began to cry. My sister-in-law's hand flew to her mouth. James staggered back, shaking his head violently. "No," James muttered, his voice cracking. "No, Margaret, tell me you didn't. Tell me this isn't true." Tears streamed down my cheeks. I was young. I was lonely. Richard was drinking heavily every night. He stopped being the man I married. He stopped being a husband. He stopped being a father. I tried to hold the family together, but I was falling apart inside. My voice trembled as I went on. There was someone, a man I worked with. He was kind to me. He listened when I cried. He gave me comfort when I felt invisible in my own home. But it was never love, not truly. It was desperation. A weakness. And the moment Richard found out, everything fell apart. Michael's voice roared through the chaos. "So it's true. You betrayed him. You drove him to that car, to that storm, to his death." I shook my head violently. "No. Michael, listen to me. Yes, I was unfaithful, but I begged him not to leave that night. I begged him. He was drunk, furious, and blinded by rage. I never wanted him to die. I never wanted you to lose your father." Sarah's voice cut through, sharp and venomous. "Save your excuses, Margaret. You destroyed a family. You destroyed him. And now you're trying to play the victim." James slammed his fist on the table, his face red with anger. "Enough, Sarah. You don't know what it's like to carry the weight of raising a child alone. Margaret made mistakes, yes, but she's still Michael's mother. She doesn't deserve this humiliation." Michael turned on him, his eyes wild. "Don't you dare defend her. Don't you dare. You weren't there when Dad died. You didn't hear him call out her name in anger before he crashed. You don't know what it's like to grow up knowing your mother might have killed your father." The words hit me like a bullet. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed into my chair. I whispered, "Michael, how do you know what he said? You weren't there." He froze, his chest heaving, his fists shaking. My blood went cold. "Michael," I said slowly, "how do you know Dad called my name before the crash?" The room went silent again, everyone turning toward Michael. His face drained of color. His lips trembled, but no words came. Sarah's smirk faltered. James narrowed his eyes. "Michael, what are you hiding?" Michael's breathing quickened. He looked at me, then at the others, then back at the floor as if searching for a way out. And in that moment I realized, my son wasn't just accusing me. He was hiding something too. I stood slowly, my hands trembling. My voice was shaky but firm. "Michael, were you there that night?" The entire table froze. Gasps filled the room again. Michael's eyes widened, his face pale as a ghost. His lips parted but no sound came. And then his silence told me everything. The room was suffocating with silence. My question hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. "Michael," I whispered again, my voice trembling, "were you there the night your father died?" His eyes darted left and right, like a trapped animal searching for escape. His fists clenched, his chest rose and fell rapidly, and his lips quivered as though he wanted to speak but couldn't. James leaned across the table, his voice sharp and commanding. "Answer her, boy. Were you there?" Michael's face went pale. I. Sarah reached for his hand. "Michael, don't." But James's voice boomed over hers. "Don't protect him, Sarah. He's hiding something, and we deserve to know what it is." The rest of the family stared wide-eyed. My nieces clutched their mother tighter. My sister-in-law muttered prayers under her breath. I stepped forward, my legs shaking but my voice steady now. "Michael, tell me the truth. Please. After all these years, don't keep this from me. Were you there?" Michael's eyes filled with tears. He slammed his hand on the table so hard the dishes rattled. "Yes," he shouted. The room erupted in gasps. James staggered back. My heart dropped into my stomach. Sarah's eyes widened, her smug expression cracking for the first time. Michael's voice broke as he shouted again. "Yes. I was there. I followed Dad out that night. I saw everything. The relatives began to murmur in shock, their voices a storm of disbelief. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You were only 10 years old. Why would you follow him? Michael's face twisted with anguish. Because I was scared. I heard you screaming, I saw him storm out. And I thought he was leaving us forever. I couldn't let him go, so I ran after him. His voice cracked. I hid in the back seat of the car. He didn't know I was there. The room froze. I felt the blood drain from my body. My legs threatened to give out beneath me. My 10-year-old son had been in the car? Michael's tears fell freely now. I saw him drinking from the flask while he drove. I begged him to stop, but he just shouted about you. He said you ruined his life, that he should never have married you. He was furious, Mom. And then, his voice broke completely. And then he lost control of the wheel. The room was silent except for Michael's sobs. My breath came in short gasps. My mind spun. My son had been there, living through the nightmare I thought only I carried. James finally spoke, his voice low, trembling. Michael. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Michael's body shook with rage and grief. Because I thought she knew. I thought she left me to hear it all. Dad's last words, he was screaming her name. He said he wished she was dead instead of him. And I believed him. I believed him all these years. His words sliced me open. Tears poured down my face as I shook my head violently.
No.
Michael, I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know you were in that car. If I had known, I would have run to you. I would have taken you out. I would have. But he cut me off, his voice trembling with fury. Don't try to cover it now. You destroyed Dad, and you destroyed me too. Do you have any idea what it's like to carry those words in your head every day of your life? To believe your own mother was the reason your father died. My knees buckled. I collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. The relatives sat in stunned silence, unsure what to say. Sarah rubbed Michael's shoulder, but even she looked shaken now. James tried to steady his voice. Michael, if you were there, then you also know your father was drunk. You know he made the choice to drive that night. That's not your mother's fault. But Michael shook his head violently. No. Don't you get it? She pushed him. She told him not to come back. I heard her. I heard every word. And that's what broke him. That's what killed him. My heart shattered all over again. I wanted to scream that it wasn't true. That words spoken in anger didn't kill a man. But deep down I knew, those words haunted me too. Michael turned toward me, his eyes blazing through tears. I was there, Mom. I saw everything. I heard everything. And I'll never forgive you for it. The room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone stared at me, waiting for my response, waiting for me to defend myself. But before I could speak, Sarah's voice cut in like a knife. Actually, she said, her tone icy and deliberate. There's something Michael hasn't told you all yet. Something even worse than what you've just heard. The room gasped again. My body froze. Michael's head whipped toward her, his eyes wide with panic. Sarah, no, he whispered, his voice cracking. But Sarah only smiled darkly. Oh yes, Michael. They deserve to know. And at that moment, I realized, whatever she was about to say, would destroy us all. The air in the room was so heavy you could almost choke on it. Everyone's eyes snapped to Sarah as she leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a cruel smile. Sarah, don't. Michael's voice cracked, desperate, trembling. His hands shook as he reached for her arm. Please don't. But Sarah yanked her arm away, her eyes burning with venom. No, Michael. You've been so quick to shame your mother, to scream about what she did. But what about you? What about the truth you've been hiding all these years? Gasps rippled around the table. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear over the rushing in my ears. James barked. What truth? Sarah, stop playing games. Speak clearly. Sarah folded her arms and leaned forward, her voice cold and deliberate. The truth is, Michael wasn't just a witness that night. He wasn't just some poor child in the back seat. No. She tilted her head, her smile cruel. Michael grabbed the wheel. The room erupted in chaos. What? Someone shouted. No, that's impossible, another cried. James nearly fell out of his chair. his face pale as ash. I felt the blood drain from my body. My mouth went dry. My son's eyes widened in horror. "She's lying," Michael screamed, slamming his fist on the table. His whole body trembled as tears streamed down his face. "She's lying. I didn't kill him." But Sarah didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, cutting like glass. "Oh, but you did, Michael. You told me yourself. You said you were screaming at your father. You grabbed the wheel to try to stop him from drinking, and that's when the car swerved off the road. You've carried that guilt all your life, haven't you? That's why you lash out at your mother, because it's easier to blame her than to face what you really did." The room went deathly silent. All eyes turned back to Michael. His hands covered his face, his shoulders shaking violently. I stood frozen, my body trembling so hard I thought I might collapse. "Michael!" My voice cracked, desperate, pleading. "Tell me it's not true." Michael's voice was muffled behind his hands. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to stop him from drinking." He wouldn't listen. He kept screaming at me, "Screaming at you." I panicked. I grabbed the wheel for just a second. Just a second. The words hit me like a thunderclap. My son. My little boy. Carrying this weight all his life. Gasps filled the room again. My nieces began to cry, burying their faces in their mother's lap. James staggered backward, his hand gripping the edge of the table. Michael dropped his hands, his face streaked with tears. His voice cracked with despair. "It was an accident. I didn't mean for him to die. But when the car flipped, when I crawled out and saw him lifeless, I knew it was my fault. And I swore I would never tell anyone." He fell to his knees on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. My chest felt like it was splitting open. All these years I had blamed myself, hated myself for driving Richard out that night. And now to know my son had been there, to know he had lived with this secret. I rushed toward him, my arms trembling as I reached out. "Michael, my baby, it wasn't your fault. You were a child. You didn't know what you were doing." But he shoved me back, his eyes wild with pain and fury. "Don't touch me. Don't you dare pretend to comfort me now. You're the reason he left that night. If you hadn't betrayed him, none of this would have happened. He'd still be alive." I stumbled backward, the rejection cutting deeper than the slap had hours earlier. The relatives looked on in shock, some crying, some whispering frantically. James tried to step in, his voice steady but firm. "Michael, listen to me. You were a child. Your father made his own choices. It was his drinking, his rage, his recklessness that caused that crash. Not you. And not your mother." But Michael shook his head violently, tears streaming down his face. "You don't get it. Both of them killed him. Her betrayal. My mistake. We both did it." He clutched his head in his hands, rocking back and forth on the floor, breaking apart right before us all. And just when the room could not bear another ounce of tension, a voice spoke from the doorway. A deep, familiar voice. One that froze every single soul at that table. "Enough." The room went deathly silent. My heart stopped. My eyes darted toward the door. And there he was. Richard. My husband. Alive. The word echoed in my ears like a thunderclap. Enough. Every head at the table snapped toward the doorway. And there he was. Richard. My husband. The man I had buried in my heart a decade ago. Alive. My breath caught in my throat. My knees went weak, and I gripped the table to keep from collapsing. The room was frozen, everyone too stunned to even move. James was the first to find his voice. What kind of sick game is this?" His words trembled. "You can't be." But Richard stepped forward, his face aged, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes burning with the same fire I remembered. "It's me," he said calmly, his voice rough. "I'm alive." The relatives gasped, some of them crying, others muttering prayers. Michael's face twisted in confusion and fury. No. I saw you. I was there. You were dead. I saw your body." Richard's gaze locked on him, sharp and unyielding. "No, Michael. You saw what they wanted you to see." The room erupted with questions. "What does that mean? Who wanted us to see what? Richard, where have you been all these years?" My throat was so tight I could barely speak. Finally, I forced the words out. Richard, if you're alive, then who? Who was in that car? Who did we bury? His eyes shifted to me, and for the first time, his expression cracked with something almost like regret. Not me, he said quietly. That night was not an accident. It was staged. The room fell into stunned silence. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. James muttered under his breath. Michael staggered to his feet, his face pale and trembling. Staged? What are you saying? You faked your own death. Richard nodded slowly. Yes. A scream ripped out of me before I even realized it. Why? Why would you do something so cruel? Why let your own son, your own family, think you were gone? Do you know the years of torment, the guilt, the grief we've lived with? Richard's jaw tightened. You don't understand. I had to. If I hadn't disappeared that night, none of us would be alive right now. The room gasped. James slammed his fist on the table. Explain yourself, Richard. Enough of these riddles. Richard stepped closer, his voice low and grave. That night I wasn't drunk. I wasn't out of control. I was being hunted. Everyone froze. Michael blinked rapidly, confusion spreading across his face. Hunted? By who? Richard's eyes darkened. By the people I owed. Dangerous men. Men who don't forgive. Men who don't forget. They wanted me dead, and they would have killed anyone close to me. You. Your mother. All of you. The room filled with horrified murmurs. My heart slammed against my chest. Richard, what did you do? His lips pressed into a hard line. I got involved with the wrong people. Gambling. Debt. First I thought I could handle it. But by the time I realized how deep I was, it was too late. That night they were coming for me. So I staged the crash. I let them think I was gone. And I disappeared. My whole body trembled with rage and disbelief. You let me believe I killed you. You let your son believe he killed you. You let us suffer for 10 years. My voice cracked with anguish. How could you, Richard? How could you do that to us? Michael stepped forward, his face twisted with grief and rage. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I hated myself. I hated Mom. I hated everyone because I thought I killed you. And all this time you were alive? His voice broke. You're a monster. Richard's eyes softened for the first time. Michael, I wanted to come back. Every single day. I wanted to. But if I had, they would have killed you all. I stayed away to keep you safe. Michael's hands balled into fists. Safe? Do I look safe to you? Do I look like a boy who grew up without scars? The room fell into heavy silence again. And then Sarah's voice cut through like a knife. Well, well, she sneered. The prodigal husband returns. How noble of you, Richard. But maybe you should tell them the whole truth. The real reason you came back tonight. Richard's eyes snapped to her, sharp and furious. Stay out of this, Sarah. She smirked, leaning back in her chair. Oh no, Richard. You've kept your secrets long enough. But now they're all going to hear what you came here for. The room turned to her in shock, waiting. I felt my heart pound so loudly it echoed in my ears. Sarah's smirk widened. You didn't just come back because of guilt, did you, Richard? You came back because... She paused for effect, her voice dripping with venom. They finally found you. The room went still. Richard's face drained of color. His lips pressed into a thin line. His silence was more terrifying than words. And in that silence, the whole family realized, danger wasn't just in the past. It was standing at our doorstep. Sarah's words still hung in the air like a curse. They finally found you. Every relative froze, eyes darting between her and Richard, waiting for him to deny it. But he didn't. His silence screamed louder than words. My chest tightened. Richard, is it true? His jaw clenched. His eyes avoided mine. That was answer enough. Michael's face twisted with rage. You brought them here? After everything, you led them straight to us. Richard held up his hands, his voice sharp. No. I tried to protect you. I never wanted them to touch this family. But Sarah's right. They found me. And now, he swallowed hard, his voice breaking for the first time. Now they'll come for anyone in this room. Gasps erupted. Some of the younger children started to cry, clutching their mothers. James stepped in. slamming his palm on the table. Enough riddles, Richard. Who are these people? What do they want? Before Richard could answer, the sound cut through the night. A car door. Then another. Then footsteps, heavy, deliberate, crunching against the gravel driveway. Everyone froze. My heart stopped. Michael rushed to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to peek outside. His face drained of color. Oh my God! What is it? I whispered, though I already felt dread crawling up my spine. Michael turned slowly, his voice trembling. Men. 4 of them. Standing by black SUVs. They've got guns. The room erupted in terrified screams. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Chairs scraped back. Panic shot through the air like lightning. Quiet. Richard hissed, his voice low but commanding. Everyone stay down. But it was too late. A hard knock thundered at the door. Bam, bam, bam. The entire house shook. Richard. A deep voice boomed from outside. We know you're in there. You've run long enough. It's time to pay your debt. My knees buckled. My blood turned to ice. James quickly began ushering the younger ones toward the back rooms. Everyone move. Go now. Michael spun on Richard, his voice shaking with fury. You ruined us. You brought this nightmare to our doorstep. Richard grabbed his arm. Michael, listen to me. If we don't stay calm, people will die tonight. Another bang rattled the door, this time harder. Wood cracked under the force. I clutched the table, my breaths coming in sharp gasps. My mind screamed. This is it. This is how it ends. Sarah, instead of hiding, smirked darkly from her chair. Well, isn't this poetic? Thanksgiving dinner with guns at the door. Michael's fist shook. He turned toward the kitchen drawer, yanking it open and pulling out a knife. His eyes burned. If they want him, they'll have to get through me first. Richard stepped in front of him, grabbing his wrist.
No.
You're not doing this. I won't let you throw your life away for me. Michael screamed, voice cracking. You already threw my life away 10 years ago. The door shook again, this time splintering. And then, the sound that made every soul in that room stop breathing. A single gunshot. The window shattered. Glass rained across the table. Screams erupted as children wailed and adults ducked to the floor. I dropped flat, my hands covering my head. My heart hammering so loudly it hurt. And then, just as chaos swallowed the room, someone fell. I turned my head slowly, my chest tightening, dread eating at me. And there on the floor, blood spreading fast beneath them, was one of my family members. The sound of the gunshot still rang in my ears. I forced myself to look, though my heart screamed not to. And there, sprawled on the floor, clutching his side as blood seeped through his shirt, was James. No, I cried, crawling across the broken glass toward him. James, stay with me. He groaned, his face pale, sweat breaking across his forehead. His hand pressed hard against the wound, but blood leaked through his fingers. Panic erupted around me. Children screamed. Some of the women wailed. Michael dropped the knife in shock, his body trembling. James. Michael choked, his voice breaking. He dropped to his knees beside his brother. No, 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 you're going to be okay. Richard's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone get down. Stay away from the windows. But no one listened. Fear had taken over. Another gunshot rang out. The dining room chandelier shattered, raining glass on us all. Michael grabbed James's shoulders, shaking him. Stay awake. Don't you dare close your eyes. His tears fell freely. James coughed, blood staining his lips. His voice was weak. It hurts. My hands shook as I pressed mine over his, trying to stop the bleeding. Don't you leave me, James. Don't you leave me. Richard pulled at me. We can't stay here. They'll break the door any second. We need to move him. Michael's head snapped up, his face furious. This is your fault. If James dies tonight, it's on you. Richard didn't argue. His eyes hardened, his jaw set. He knew Michael was right. Another slam shook the front door. It was about to give way. Richard! The voice outside thundered again. We want you. Not them. Open the door and no one else has to die. The room went still. Everyone stared at Richard. His face was etched with torment, but his body stood firm. Don't listen to them, he growled. They'll kill all of you anyway. But Michael's voice cut sharp. Then go out there and face them yourself. Don't make us suffer for your sins. For a moment Richard didn't move. His chest heaved, his eyes darted to James bleeding on the floor, to me trembling beside him, to the terrified faces of our family huddled in the corners. And then he stood. Slowly he walked toward the door. My heart stopped.
Richard, no.
What are you doing? He turned, his eyes meeting mine. There was something in them I hadn't seen in years. Resolve. This ends tonight, he said firmly. I won't run anymore. Michael jumped to his feet, grabbing his father's arm.
No.
You can't just. But before he could finish, the front door exploded inward. The wooden frame shattered. The hinges tore loose. And there they were. 4 men dressed in black, faces hard, guns raised. The leader stepped inside, his cold eyes scanning the room before locking on Richard. He grinned, a predator's grin. Well, well. The ghost returns. The air grew so heavy I could barely breathe. My body shook as I clutched James tighter. Michael's hand twitched toward the kitchen knife on the floor. Richard raised his hand slowly, stepping forward. I'm here. Let them go. This is between you and me. The man chuckled darkly. Oh, Richard, you know it's never that simple. He raised his gun, leveling it straight at Richard's chest. Time seemed to freeze. And then, another gunshot split the air. But this time it wasn't from the intruders. Everyone spun toward the sound. And standing at the back of the room, holding a pistol with trembling hands, was Sarah. Her face was pale, her hand shaking, smoke curling from the barrel of the gun. One of the intruders dropped to the floor, clutching his neck, blood pouring between his fingers. The room erupted into chaos. And just like that, Thanksgiving turned into war. The sound of Sarah's gunshot cracked through the house like thunder. For one frozen second, nobody moved. The man she'd hit collapsed, blood gushing from his throat, gurgling as he clawed at the floor. His gun slipped from his hand, clattering uselessly. Then chaos exploded. Get down, Richard roared, throwing himself toward the dining table and flipping it on its side. Plates, glasses, and half-eaten turkey scattered across the floor. Family members screamed and ducked behind chairs and furniture. Bullets tore through the walls. Drywall splintered. Windows shattered as 2 of the armed men opened fire. The air filled with deafening blasts, the acrid stench of gunpowder choking the room. I dropped flat, my arms wrapped around James's bloody body. Please, God, please, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Michael scrambled across the floor, grabbing the fallen attacker's gun. He fumbled, almost dropping it, then clutched it tightly with shaking hands. Michael, no! I cried. But he ignored me, rolling to the side and firing wildly toward the intruders. Bullets cracked into the walls, missing their targets but forcing the men to duck. One of the attackers stormed forward, gun raised. Richard launched himself at him, tackling him into the side of the fireplace. The gun went off, the shot echoing inches from Richard's ear, but he didn't let go. They wrestled viciously, fists slamming, grunts filling the air. Richard! I screamed. Another man advanced toward the group of children huddled in the corner. His eyes were cold, merciless. And then, Sarah fired again. The bullet caught him in the shoulder. He staggered, cursing, his gun slipping for just a second. Michael saw his chance. He aimed and fired. This time, the bullet found its mark, straight through the man's chest. He collapsed lifeless. The family gasped. Michael froze, staring at the smoking gun in his hand. His chest heaved, his eyes wide with horror at what he'd just done. But there was no time. The last attacker grabbed Sarah from behind, twisting her arm and pressing his gun to her temple. Enough, he barked, his voice sharp and cruel. Drop your weapons or she dies. The room went deadly silent. Richard froze, breathing hard, his fists still bloodied from the fight. Michael's hands trembled as he clutched the pistol. My heart pounded so violently I thought it would burst. Sarah whimpered, her eyes wide with terror. Don't listen to him. The attacker pressed the gun harder against her head. I said drop them. Now. Richard raised his hands slowly, his voice cold as steel. Let her go. You don't want to do this. The man sneered. She just killed one of mine. You think I'm letting her walk out of here? I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred with tears. Everything inside me screamed to do something, but I was frozen, powerless. Michael's jaw clenched. His eyes darted from Sarah's terrified face to Richard's steady gaze. And then Michael dropped the gun. It clattered against the floor, the sound echoing like a death sentence. The attacker smirked. Smart boy. But instead of loosening his grip, he dragged Sarah backward toward the open door. Gun still pressed against her head. No. I cried, struggling to my feet. Please, not her. Richard lunged forward, but the man shoved the gun harder against Sarah's temple. One more step and she's dead. We all froze as he yanked Sarah outside into the cold night, dragging her toward the black SUV. The last thing I heard was her scream, shrill, piercing, full of terror, before the door slammed shut and the vehicle roared to life. And then they were gone. The house was silent. Not the silence of peace but of shock. The kind that makes the air heavy, pressing against your chest until you can't breathe. Sarah's scream still echoed in my head. I could hear the SUV's tires screeching in the distance, carrying her farther and farther away. I collapsed against the wall, my body trembling, my breath shallow. James lay on the floor, pale and bleeding but alive barely. Michael knelt beside him, his face streaked with tears and sweat, muttering, "Hold on, please hold on." Richard stood in the middle of the wreckage, his hands clenched into fists, blood streaking his face. His chest heaved, his eyes burning with a mixture of fury and something else I couldn't place, shame. Finally Michael snapped. He leapt to his feet, pointing a finger at his father. "This is your fault." His voice cracked with rage. "Everything that just happened, James bleeding out, Sarah taken. It's all because of you." Richard didn't move. He just stood there silent. "Say something," Michael roared, shoving him hard against the wall. "Who were those men? Why are they after you?" The family's eyes turned to Richard, demanding answers. And finally he spoke. His voice was low, ragged. "They're from my past." Michael's nostrils flared. "Your past?" Richard swallowed hard. "Years ago, before you were born, I was involved with people I shouldn't have been. Dangerous people. I made mistakes, bad ones. I thought I left it behind, but clearly." He glanced at the shattered door, at the blood on the floor. "They never forgot." The room went still. "What kind of mistakes?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Richard looked at me, then at the children hiding in the corner. His eyes softened for a brief moment, but his words were sharp. "I stole from them." A gasp went through the family. Richard continued, his jaw tight. "It was supposed to be one job. One shipment. I was young, stupid, and I thought I could outsmart them. I walked away with millions that weren't mine. I used that money to start over. To build the life we have now." Michael's face went white. "You mean our house, our lives, it's all built on stolen blood money?" Richard's voice cracked. "I did it for you. For this family. To give you a chance at something better than the life I was born into." Michael's fist slammed against the wall. "And now Sarah is paying the price. They don't want just you, Dad. They'll tear us apart until they get what they came for." Richard closed his eyes, his body trembling. "They won't stop. Not until they've taken everything from me." The room filled with sobs and whispers. Some relatives clung to each other. Others glared at Richard with disgust. I looked at him, my heart torn in two. Part of me hated him for dragging us into this nightmare. But another part of me saw the guilt etched deep into his face. The man who thought he could outsmart darkness, but only brought it to our doorstep. Suddenly, James coughed violently, his body jerking. Michael grabbed his hand, panicked. "We need to get him to a hospital. Now." But Richard shook his head quickly.
No hospitals.
"They'll be watching. The moment we step out, we're targets." Michael's eyes blazed. "So we just let him die on this floor?" Richard clenched his jaw. "I know someone. A doctor. Off the books. He can help us." The family exchanged uneasy looks. Could we trust him again? After everything? Michael snarled. "You're asking us to believe you, after you've lied for decades?" Richard's voice hardened. "You don't have a choice. If we don't move soon, James won't make it. And Sarah..." He stopped, his throat tight. "Sarah doesn't have much time." My heart squeezed painfully. I grabbed Richard's arm, my voice breaking. "Where did they take her?" Richard hesitated. His silence was the answer I feared most. He knew. They'll use her, he said finally, his voice grim. As bait. To lure me out. A shiver ran down my spine. Michael stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. Then we go after them. Tonight. Richard shook his head. Not like this. We don't have enough firepower. We don't even know how many men are waiting. But Michael wouldn't listen. He grabbed the pistol from the floor, his knuckles white around the grip. Then I'll go myself. Richard moved fast, pinning Michael against the wall. You'll die before you get close. They struggled, both growling, both too stubborn to back down. The family screamed, trying to separate them. And then, the front window shattered. A rock tumbled across the floor, wrapped in paper. Everyone froze. Michael picked it up with shaking hands, unwrapping the note. His face went pale as he read the words aloud. We have Sarah. Midnight. The old docks. Come alone or she dies. The room went cold. And just like that, we had a deadline. The note sat on the table like a curse, its words burning into my mind. We have Sarah. Midnight. The old docks. Come alone or she dies. The room was chaos. Everyone spoke at once, shouts, sobs, arguments. Some begged Richard to go. Others demanded we call the police, and Michael paced the floor like a caged lion, his gun clenched tightly in his fist. We can't wait, he snarled. They'll kill her the second they get bored. We have to move now. Richard's voice boomed over the noise. No. His tone was firm, commanding. If we rush in blind, they'll slaughter us all. That's exactly what they want. Michael spun on him, fury in his eyes. And what do you suggest, Dad? Sit here while Sarah begs for her life. Richard's jaw tightened. I suggest we prepare. We don't have much time, but we can't afford mistakes. Michael shook his head violently. You're the reason she's out there. You dragged this poison into our family. Now you want us to trust you again. The room went quiet at that, the truth echoing painfully. Richard lowered his gaze, shame flickering in his eyes. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life paying for it. But right now, saving Sarah is all that matters. I won't let them take her. Michael stepped closer, his voice cold as steel. You mean you won't let them take you? This isn't about Sarah, it's about your pride. About you settling old debts. Richard's chest heaved, but he didn't argue. I pushed myself between them, my hands trembling. Enough. Both of you. My voice cracked as I sobbed. This isn't about who's right or wrong, it's about Sarah. My granddaughter is out there, terrified, maybe hurt. And every second you waste fighting is a second closer to her dying. Tears burned my eyes as I looked at both men. The son I raised, and the grandson who was now more of a man than his father in this moment. If you two can't stand together for her, then God help us all. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Richard sighed, his shoulders slumping. Fine. Here's the plan. He spread an old map across the table, his finger jabbing at the docks. They'll expect me to come alone. I will. But I won't be walking in blind. Michael narrowed his eyes. What are you saying? Richard met his gaze. You'll be my backup. You and anyone else who's willing. Stay hidden until I give the signal. If something happens to me, you take the shot. The family murmured in unease. Some shook their heads in fear. Others clenched their fists, determination flashing in their eyes. Michael stared at him for a long moment, then gave a single nod. Fine. But if you hesitate, if you even think of choosing yourself over Sarah, I won't. The clock ticked louder than ever as we prepared. Richard armed himself, strapping a pistol to his side and tucking a knife into his boot. Michael loaded the stolen gun, his hands shaking but steadying with each click. Others grabbed kitchen knives, bats, anything they could use. The air was thick with fear and adrenaline. And then midnight came. The drive to the docks was suffocating. The black water shimmered under the moonlight, the air cold and damp. Shadows stretched long across the abandoned warehouses, each one looking like it could hide death. Richard walked ahead, his figure tall and tense, while Michael lingered behind with a small group of relatives, hiding in the darkness. I stayed back with James, who was too weak to move, my heart pounding with every step they took. A single SUV waited by the water, its headlights cutting through the fog. The back door opened, and there she was, Sarah. Her hands were tied, her face bruised, her mouth gagged. She stumbled as one of the men shoved her forward, a gun pressed to her back. "Richard!" A voice bellowed from the shadows, cold, mocking. "So good of you to come. Right on time." Richard's fists clenched. "Let her go. I'm the one you want." The man laughed. "Oh, we'll get to that. But first." He gestured, and another man stepped forward, holding a camera. Richard froze. "They want proof," the leader sneered. "The ones you stole from. They don't just want you dead, Richard. They want to watch." Sarah sobbed behind the gag, her eyes wild with terror. Michael gritted his teeth from the shadows, his finger tightening on the trigger. Richard took a step forward, his voice steady but deadly. "Then let's finish this." The leader smirked. "Gladly." And in that instant, a gunshot split the night. Richard staggered back, clutching his side, blood seeping through his shirt. The family screamed from the darkness. Michael roared in fury, raising his gun. The trap had been sprung. The crack of the gunshot echoed over the water, and Richard stumbled, blood darkening his shirt. "Dad!" Michael screamed, breaking from the shadows, gun raised. The docks erupted in chaos. Bullets whizzed through the night, ricocheting off rusted steel. The family's screams mixed with the thunder of gunfire. The attackers opened fire on the shadows, realizing they hadn't come alone. Michael sprinted forward, firing with both hands. His shots were wild at first, but then sharp, precise. One attacker dropped, then another. His rage fueled him, but his face twisted with pain each time he pulled the trigger. Richard, bleeding, staggered but refused to fall. He crawled toward Sarah, his hands stretching desperately for her. "Hold on, sweetheart, hold on." The leader sneered, yanking Sarah backward and pressing the gun to her head. "One step closer and she dies." I screamed from the van, my voice cracking, my heart tearing apart. "Please. Not my granddaughter." Michael didn't hesitate. He charged forward, bullets raining around him, until he was close enough. His gun locked on the leader. "Let her go," Michael growled. The man smirked, tightening his grip on Sarah. "You don't have the guts, boy." Michael's eyes burned with fury. "Try me." The standoff lasted only seconds, but it felt like eternity. Then, Richard used his last strength. He lunged forward, slamming into the leader, knocking Sarah free. The gun went off, the shot ripping through Richard's chest. He collapsed to the ground, gasping, blood soaking the wood beneath him. "Dad!" Michael screamed, dropping beside him. The leader scrambled back, lifting his gun again. But this time Michael didn't miss. One single shot, straight between the man's eyes. He fell like a puppet with its strings cut, lifeless. Silence. The battle was over. Sarah crawled to Richard, sobbing uncontrollably. "Grandpa, please, please don't leave me." Richard's breaths were shallow, his eyes glassy. He reached up with a trembling hand, brushing Sarah's tear-streaked cheek. "You're safe, that's all that matters." Michael clutched his father's other hand, tears streaming down his face. "No, stay with us, Dad. Don't do this." Richard's lips curled in the faintest smile. "Take care of them, all of them." His gaze flickered toward me, soft, full of regret. "I'm sorry." And with that, his eyes closed forever. A wail tore from my throat as I collapsed beside him. My son, flawed, broken, but mine, was gone. The water lapped gently against the docks, as if mocking our grief. The surviving attackers fled into the night, leaving only bodies, blood, and heartbreak behind. The family gathered around Richard's lifeless body, their sobs filling the air. Sarah clung to him, her small hands shaking. Michael knelt in silence, his shoulders trembling, the gun slipping from his hand into the dark water below. We had survived. But the price? Oh, the price was unbearable. As dawn broke, the golden light touched the blood-stained docks. It was supposed to be a day of Thanksgiving. Instead, it was the day my family broke apart and stitched itself together again, all in the same breath. Because in that moment, one truth became clear. Family can wound you deeper than anyone else, but it's also the only thing worth fighting and dying for. And that's the story of the night my son slapped me in front of relatives on Thanksgiving. A night that spiraled into blood, betrayal, and sacrifice. Broken heart. Now before I end, let me talk to you. Yes, you watching this. If this story touched your heart, if it made you cry, or if it kept you on the edge of your seat, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And tell me from which part of the country, or the world, are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments below, because I want to know where my family of viewers is listening from. Remember this life lesson. Never take family for granted. You never know which hug, which smile, or which argument might be the last. Forgive quickly, love deeply, and don't let pride steal the people who matter most. I am Grandma Margaret from Ohio, 68 years old, and this was my story. Thank you for listening. Broken Heart Old Woman.